Alright guys, this is just going to be a quick video on writing in the real world. So what kind of writing are you going to be doing? So unless you go into a research heavy field like medicine, or if you decide to teach college one day, it's highly unlikely you're going to be doing a lot of research papers. Really any other type of paper. You might have some reports, you might have some proposals, potentially grants, things like that. But for the most part, you will be using elements of research, analytical, and narrative writing for your careers. And as I said, potentially grant writing, presentations, and things like that for your company, but probably not papers. Now, if you will be writing papers for the rest of your college career, and especially if you decide to go get a master's degree, a lot of master's degrees are very research heavy and very paper writing heavy, not so much on tests. And so that's why, especially in 1020, it's going to be very important that you pay attention to the research writing elements of that class. But in the real world, you're mostly going to be doing mostly email, texting, and presentations, honestly. But believe it or not, some people struggle with writing a good email. So we've gotten so used to texting that a lot of this text talk and abbreviations and whatnot have crept its way into how we communicate in the school and workplace. And, there's a time and place, and especially, this goes back to knowing your audience. If you've got an older boss, they're not going to appreciate a very texty-like email. So it's really important that you know how to construct a little slightly more formal email, because until you get to know either your boss or professor, you won't really know if they're willing to accept a more casual type email. So here's an example of a slightly too casual email. Hey, I'm in your class this semester, but I've missed the first 4 days due to some unexpected problems with work and family. I would like to make up the work if you can send me the syllabus and all the handouts. Thank you. And also if I miss any important info. Will we be needing the book this semester because I'm on a budget? LOL, thanks. Yeah, I'd like to say that this was probably just made up, but it probably was not. We get emails like this. And so the key is how do we fix it? One, always capitalize I in reference to yourself. That's always going to be really, really important to do. At least they kind of admit that, hey, we've missed the first 4 days due to some unexpected problems with work and family. We don't need the smiley face. So let's leave that out. I would like to make up the work. If you spell out, you can send me the syllabus and all the handouts. Thank you. Before you would even send something like that, especially like if you go to a school like MTSU or any of the former Board of Regents schools, Tennessee Tech, APSU, whatnot, a lot of classes now have that online component. And so always check there first. I forget what UT uses, if any of y'all are going to UT. But because usually the professor will post a syllabus there. Like, they get really annoyed when you ask them to send the syllabus, especially if it's printed somewhere online. The same thing with handouts. And honestly, that might be a better conversation to have in person. Never ask if you'll actually need the book that semester. Everyone's on a budget to a certain extent. If they ask for the book, then there's more than a really, really good chance that you are going to need that book. Never use text talk. Don't do LOL. Don't abbreviate thanks. So those are some ways that I would fix this particular email. I would also make sure that I am addressing my instructor formally, especially if this is the first time I've ever emailed them. So probably something along the lines of, hello, Dr. or Mr. or Mrs. Professor. So that's just some things that you would need to consider, especially a first email. Always err on the side of caution and try to keep it formal. So texting, again, some professors allow you to text. I do. I use Remind. I know some instructors also will use Remind. They don't mind if you get a text message. And even in the workplace, like my husband, engineer, he uses texting a lot with his job. You'll know pretty quickly if it's appropriate to text with either your boss or professor. But just like with an email, it would be best to keep the tone formal and be short, sweet, and to the point. I have a phrase that says there's beauty in brevity. So let's practice that. So this is a potential text. Hey, so sorry, overslept. I was out partying last night, met and knew someone special and got really drunk. I threw up so much and woke up with the biggest headache. Let me make my Starbucks run and I will be there ASAP. This isn't exactly a text I've gotten, but it's similar to one I've gotten. And so it's like way too much information. I suffer from anxiety, is something that's a part of me. And sometimes, especially when I send texts or emails, sometimes I put too much information in there. And that's what this student did. That's TMI, way TMI. I don't need to know all of that. I don't need to know that you're running to Starbucks, because my first thought is going to be like, you're late, just get to class. I don't need to know that you met someone. I don't need to know if you got drunk. I have had students tell me this and I'm like, no, that's just no. Don't do that. If you're going to be late to work or wherever, this is going to be a much better thing. Hi, I wasn't feeling well this morning and overslept. I do apologize. I will be in as soon as I can. That is much better. And you could also send that as an email if your boss, professor, or whoever is not into texting. Short, sweet, to the point. I'm pretty sure that they will want to know exactly why you weren't feeling well, but you can save that conversation for, especially if it's something like partying too much. You don't want to confess that. You can just say, if you wanted to be a little bit more specific, you can say that you had an upset stomach and that's why you were late. And again, that's one of those things where you kind of have to gauge your instructor and or your boss. Sometimes they're going to want a note, like if you're sick, if it's something specific like the flu, or if you've got a fever or something like that. So again, just judge it accordingly on how you feel, but you don't have to tell them the whole story. Like I did have a student one time who got extremely ill and she sent me she communicated to me that she was like puking up blood and all this other, like she gave me a very, very detailed play-by-play of her symptoms. And I'm like, oh, okay, I just needed to know that you were sick with the stomach virus. That's all I needed to know. Or I think it was pneumonia, actually. She wound up having pneumonia. Just let me know you have pneumonia. Let me see the doctor's note from when you were at the infirmary, and that's good. That's all we need. So again, we're going to practice an email and a text in your asynchronous assignment. And a lot of you are doing great with this, but it's just practice, because I wouldn't be encouraging this if I haven't seen it in real life.